It's waiting that helps you as an investor, and a lot of people just can't stand to wait. I've lived my whole life with people who practice deferred gratification. They don't buy fancy cars, they don't chase immediate pleasures, they invest instead. And you know what happens? They get rich. But here's the tragedy I've witnessed. Many of them defer gratification all the way to the end. They never enjoy their wealth. So we're going to have a lot of rich, dead people. The key isn't to never enjoy life. The key is understanding that every dollar you spend on depreciating assets today is a dollar that can't compound tomorrow. Great investing requires delayed gratification, but don't delay it so long that you forget to live. Find the balance. That's wisdom.
What if one decision at age 30 determined who becomes wealthy and who stays trapped? In 2015, two friends stood in the same dealership staring at the same number, $60,000. Eric said, "Screw it, I have worked so hard, I am buying my dream car." Beside him, Claire shook her head and said, "I am not doing it. I am putting this into investments. 10 years from now, we will see who made the better choice." Eric laughed and said, "Come on, live a little. You only get one life." But today in 2025, when they met again, the numbers told a very different story. This is a real financial story that might change how you see luxury, status, and building wealth. Welcome to Harper Mumbling. This story begins on a Saturday afternoon in March 2015 when two childhood friends, Eric and Claire, both 30 years old, found themselves at a luxury car dealership in their city. They had arrived separately but ran into each other in the showroom. Both were successful in their careers, Eric working in sales and Claire in technology consulting. Both had been saving aggressively for 5 years and had reached the same milestone, $60,000 in savings, and both were there looking at the same car, a sleek luxury sedan that represented everything they had dreamed about when they were broke college students. Eric was already talking to a salesperson about financing options. He had convinced himself he deserved this. After years of driving a beat-up Honda, after countless overtime hours and stressful projects, he had earned the right to enjoy his success. The car would cost $55,000 after taxes and fees. He would put down $20,000 and finance the rest over 5 years. His monthly payment would be about $700, which he could afford given his $65,000 annual salary. Claire had come to the dealership with similar intentions. She had been fantasizing about this car for months, configuring it online, imagining herself driving it, but standing there in the showroom, looking at the price tag, something made her pause. She pulled out her phone and opened a compound interest calculator. She started running numbers, and what she saw changed her mind completely. Claire did something most people never do when making major purchase decisions. She calculated the opportunity cost, not just the sticker price. The car cost $55,000. But what would that $55,000 become if she invested it instead? Using conservative assumptions of 8% average annual returns, that $55,000 would grow to approximately $118,000 over 10 years. She would be giving up $118,000 in future wealth for a car that would depreciate to maybe $15,000 in the same period. But the calculation went deeper. Claire realized the cost was not just the purchase price. There was insurance, which would be higher for a luxury vehicle, probably $3,000 per year. There was maintenance, gas, registration fees, parking. She estimated these ongoing costs would add another $4,000 per year. Over 10 years, that is $70,000 in additional expenses. So the real cost of owning this car for 10 years was not $55,000, it was $125,000 when you added up everything. Now, here is where the math became truly sobering. If she invested that $55,000 purchase price and also invested the $7,000 per year she would save by not having luxury car expenses, driving a modest, reliable vehicle instead, what would happen? The initial $55,000 would grow to $118,000. The $7,000 per year contributions over 10 years, also growing at 8%, would add another $108,000. Total, $226,000. Claire showed Eric these calculations. She tried to explain that buying this car meant choosing $126,000 of depreciating metal over $226,000 of appreciating assets. The wealth gap created by this single decision would be over $350,000 10 years from now. Eric listened politely, but his mind was made up. He wanted the car. He had earned it. He deserved to enjoy his success now, not in some distant future. Besides, he told Claire, you cannot take money with you when you die. You have to live a little. Claire made her decision that day. She walked out of the dealership without buying the car. She felt a wave of disappointment, even grief. She had wanted that car so badly, but she had seen the numbers, and the numbers did not lie. She drove home in her reliable Toyota, opened her brokerage account, and invested $50,000 into a simple portfolio of index funds, keeping $10,000 as an increased emergency fund. The first year was psychologically brutal for Claire. Eric picked up his new luxury sedan in April 2015, and the social validation was immediate and intoxicating. Friends complimented him constantly. Coworkers asked about the car. Women noticed him differently. When he pulled up to restaurants or events, valets treated him with more respect. The car became part of his identity, a visible symbol of his success and status. Claire experienced the opposite. She continued driving her 8-year-old Toyota. Nobody complimented her car. Nobody asked about it. When she explained to friends that she had chosen to invest instead of buying a luxury vehicle, their reactions ranged from confusion to pity. Several people told her she was being too cautious, that she should enjoy her money while she was young. Her dating life even suffered because potential partners saw her modest car and assumed she was not successful. The emotional cost of her decision was real. Every time she saw Eric's car, every time someone complimented him on it, every time she felt judged for driving an old Toyota, she questioned her choice. The numbers said she was making the right decision, but the social feedback said she was making the wrong one. This is the hidden cost of smart financial decisions that nobody talks about. You often have to endure years of looking less successful than your peers before the actual results prove you right. But Claire maintained her discipline. Every month, she invested an additional $600, the amount she would have spent on car payments and extra insurance if she had bought the luxury vehicle. Her investment account grew slowly but steadily. By the end of year one, her initial $50,000 had grown to about $54,000, and her monthly contributions added another $7,000. Total, $61,000. The car was already worth about $48,000 due to depreciation. The wealth gap was beginning to form. Over the next 4 years, the pattern continued and intensified. Eric loved his car, but the maintenance costs started adding up. The luxury vehicle required premium gas, expensive tires, and dealer-only service. A minor fender bender in year 3 cost $3,000 to repair because the parts were specialized. His insurance remained high. By year 5, he had paid $63,000 total into the car when you added purchase price, insurance, maintenance, gas, and repairs. The car was now worth approximately $30,000. He had consumed $33,000 of wealth through vehicle depreciation and expenses. Claire's experience was exactly the opposite. She continued her monthly investments without fail, $600 per month, every month into the same index funds. No excitement, no social validation, just consistent accumulation. The stock market had some volatility during this period. In 2015 and 2016, returns were modest. In 2018, the market declined and her account balance dropped temporarily. But she never sold, never panicked, never stopped contributing. By the end of year 5 in 2020, her account had grown to approximately $130,000 from her initial $50,000 investment, plus 60 months of $600 contributions totaling $36,000. Her total contributions were $86,000 and her balance was $130,000, a gain of $44,000. The wealth gap between Eric and Claire after 5 years was stunning. Claire had $130,000 in investment assets. Eric had a car worth $30,000 and had spent $86,000 total on vehicle-related expenses. The difference was $100,000 created by a single decision at age 30. Then 2020 arrived with the COVID pandemic, and both Eric and Claire faced their biggest financial test. Eric's sales job was heavily impacted by lockdowns. His income dropped by 40% for several months. He struggled to make his car payment and eventually had to defer payments for 3 months. The stress was overwhelming. He could not sell the car because he owed more than it was worth. He was trapped by the financial commitment he had made 5 years earlier. The car that had brought him so much joy and status had become a source of anxiety and limitation. Claire experienced the same income volatility, but her response was completely different. Her modest car payment was already paid off. She had bought her reliable Toyota outright years earlier. Her monthly expenses were low, and most importantly, her investment account had grown to the point where it provided psychological security even though she would never touch it for short-term needs. When the market crashed in March 2020, her account balance dropped significantly, but she did not panic. She had read about market history and expected volatility. She actually increased her monthly contribution during the pandemic, buying shares at lower prices. By the end of 2021, as the market recovered and reached new highs, Claire's account had exploded to approximately $185,000. The shares she bought during the pandemic crash at discounted prices had appreciated dramatically. Eric's car was now worth about $22,000, half of what he had paid 6 years earlier. The wealth gap had widened to $163,000. The final 3 years demonstrated the true power of compound growth. Claire's account had reached a size where the annual returns on her existing balance exceeded her annual contributions. In other words, her money was making more money than she was adding. This is the inflection point every investor dreams of reaching when your assets start working harder than you do. By the end of 2023, Claire's account had crossed $230,000. Her initial $50,000 had grown to over $115,000 on its own. Her contributions of $600 per month over 10 years, totaling $72,000, had grown to approximately $115,000, including returns. The compound effect was clearly visible now. Eric's car situation had become increasingly frustrating. The vehicle was now 9 years old with 90,000 miles. It needed significant repairs that cost more than the car was worth. He faced a decision: pour money into repairs for a car worth maybe $12,000 or trade it in and start another cycle of car payments. He chose to trade it in and bought another vehicle, though this time he chose something more modest, having learned expensive lessons about depreciation and opportunity cost. But those lessons came at a price of 10 years of wealth building. In early 2024, Claire made a decision that stunned everyone who knew her. She quit her high-stress consulting job. Her investment portfolio had reached $240,000, and the passive income it could generate through dividends and safe withdrawal rates gave her the confidence to make career changes her peers could not consider. She took 6 months off, traveled, and then started a lower-paying but more fulfilling job. Her investments had given her something Eric's car never could: freedom. In March 2025, exactly 10 years after that day in the dealership, Eric and Claire met for coffee. They had remained friends but had not discussed finances in years. The conversation that day was awkward but illuminating. Eric openly admitted he regretted buying that car. The temporary status boost had faded within months, but the financial cost had persisted for a decade. He calculated that between the original car and the replacement vehicle he was now driving, he had spent over $140,000 on vehicle-related expenses over 10 years. His current net worth, excluding his modest retirement account, was approximately negative $5,000 due to some credit card debt he had accumulated. Claire shared her numbers with permission to tell this story. Her investment account stood at $248,000. From $50,000 and $600 per month for 10 years, she had built a portfolio worth $250,000. The wealth gap between the two friends was $253,000, all traceable back to that single decision in the dealership 10 years earlier. But the most striking difference was not the numbers, it was the optionality and freedom. Claire had choices Eric did not have. She could afford to take career risks. She could weather financial emergencies without stress. She was on track to retire early if she chose. Eric was still living paycheck to paycheck, still stressed about money, still feeling trapped by his financial obligations. The car had provided temporary happiness. The investments had provided permanent freedom. Eric asked Claire the question he wished he had asked 10 years earlier. How did you have the discipline to walk away from something you wanted so badly? Claire's answer was simple but profound. She said she had learned to separate wanting from needing and status from security. She wanted the car, but she did not need it. The car would provide status, but the investments would provide security. Once she understood that distinction, the choice became obvious. This story is not really about cars versus investments. It is about the fundamental choice we all face constantly: immediate gratification versus delayed gratification, status versus substance, appearing wealthy versus actually building wealth. Every major purchase decision is this same choice in different packaging: the luxury watch, the designer clothes, the expensive vacation home, the boat, the frequent high-end restaurant meals. These are all the same decision Eric made in the dealership. The pattern is always the same. The immediate choice provides short-term emotional satisfaction and social validation. The delayed choice provides long-term financial security and freedom. Most people choose immediate because humans are wired to value present rewards over future rewards. We see the car, we feel the status, we experience the validation right now. The investment returns are abstract, distant, uncertain, but the mathematics are merciless and predictable. The immediate choice consumes wealth. The delayed choice creates wealth. Do this once and the impact is moderate. Do this repeatedly over a lifetime and the impact determines whether you retire comfortably or work until you die. Claire's story provides the blueprint for anyone willing to follow it. Identify what you truly want, not what society tells you to want. Calculate the opportunity cost, not just the price tag. Ask whether this purchase provides lasting value or temporary satisfaction. Consider what the same money would become if invested over a decade. Make decisions based on those calculations, not on social pressure or keeping up with peers. Automate your investing so the wealth building happens regardless of your emotions or temptations. Wait years for the results to manifest while everyone else judges you for not having the visible symbols of success. Then enjoy the freedom that comes when your assets provide options others cannot access. 10 years ago, two friends stood in a dealership facing the same choice. One chose the dream car and the temporary validation it provided. One chose the boring investment and the permanent freedom it built. Today, their lives look completely different, and that difference will only widen with each passing year. The choice is not about cars or investments. The choice is about what kind of life you want to have when you are 40, 50, 60 years old. Do you want to look successful now and be trapped later, or look modest now and be free later? This is Harper Mumbling, and if this story changed how you think about luxury purchases and opportunity cost, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who needs to hear that building real wealth often means looking less wealthy than your peers for years or decades. Leave a comment about a major purchase you walked away from or a purchase you now regret and what you learned from that experience. Turn on notifications for future videos about the real-world financial consequences of everyday decisions. Thank you for watching, and remember, the question is not whether you can afford to buy something, the question is whether you can afford the opportunity cost of not investing that money instead.